Welcome to the new video of Unqork. So hope you are doing great in your life. So let's start with our video, which is about the proxy. So before going to the actual configuration, let me explain you quickly what is proxy, right? So let me open our dashboard, which we had built previously, which is a resort admin dashboard. Okay, here we go. So this is a dashboard that we had built, right? So if you see here, we have different plugins that we had used. So we had used this plug get dashboard data. We had seen this plugin, delete entry, update entry, all those stuff, right? So if you open this plugin, right, which we are using to get the data, so that is directly present on the system, right, on the module. So if I preview this module and if I just inspect, so whatever this data is coming from, we can see the endpoint of that, right, directly. So if I refresh, let it reload. So here in the network tab, we can actually see yeah, this is the call, right? So we are able to see this call. So this is the payload that we are passing. And apart from that, this is the endpoint, right, that we are targeting or hitting. And we are passing these details. Then we are getting these details. So this is not good practice from the security point of view, because if we are directly exposing our external API, or in this case, it is a training environments Unqork URL, but you might consider this as a API, right, that you have put it on a server. So we are directly exposing the endpoint of that API. So that is not a correct way. Yeah, so how to make sure that this direct endpoint is not exposed to the user, right? So for that we use a proxy. So what is that proxy is? Let me just tell you with the help of diagram. So you can consider this as our resort, right? You can consider this as our uh, resort admin dashboard, right? And this you can consider as the module where all this data is stored, right? So we are directly calling this endpoint. I can say this is an endpoint server. Instead of that, I can say it's a server, right? So we are keeping all our endpoints here. And what happens when we land on the admin dashboard is we call this server with that specific endpoint and we get the response back, right? So we get the response back with whatever the submissions those are present in the database. So this is the direct communication. So what is proxy like? Instead of calling this server directly from the UI screen, what we will do is we'll call this proxy. Let me type here proxy. So we'll call this proxy, okay? And then this proxy would take care of calling this server. Let me track this arrow here. Okay, so this proxy will take care of calling this server, and then this server would send back the response to this proxy again. Okay, sorry, let me delete this extra stuff. Okay, so this server would get that response back to the proxy from where it is called. Yeah, this proxy. And then this proxy would again send that response back to the UI, right? That from where we are calling. So in that case, okay, sorry, I'm using this for the first time, so ignore this. Okay, so this is cool, right? So instead of directly calling the server, we are going via different route, which is called as proxy. So this technique or this pattern is something not only used in Unqork, but everywhere it is used where we directly don't want to expose the server URL. So how to achieve this with the help of Unqork? Okay, so this module, let's assume this is a front end module, right? So with this diagram, you can assume like this is this module, right? I can write here as front end module. Instead of writing this specific resort thing, I can write here as front end module. Okay, and let's create this module, right, where the actual operation would be happening to store the data into the component, into the database. So let me create a new one, which is, you can write here some random name, dummy name as store data. So we are not going to do any storing operation here. I'm just writing a pseudo configuration kind of a thing. Okay, so just to explain the concept of it. So usually what we will do is here we will use this plugin. Okay, so if we are not using any proxy, then the way is like, here we will use the execute module, and whatever the data that we want to pass, that we will pass from this module to this store data module, right? And directly the data would be saved based on our logic. But what we will do is, instead of calling the store data module directly, we will call a proxy module, right? So here I have created a proxy module, which you can assume as this module. So I will call proxy module first, and then this proxy module will handle that, right? What to do. So in that case, I can write here execute via proxy. Sorry, let me type it here as, yeah, so we have this execute via proxy module, and here I can enter the name, the module ID. Okay, before that, let me name it as plug store data, and let's create some dummy data here. Maybe I can write here as sample data, and here I can write as data. Save. So let's use a button to trigger this plugin. Okay, let it be the name as submit, and here we'll write plug store data. So with the click of button, we are going to trigger this plugin. Okay, if I click on submit, then this is the data that we are passing, right, to the proxy module. So now if I want to capture whatever the data that we are passing, right, to this proxy module, so instead of writing that actual data or whatever the key name here, we write this as underscore request. Okay, so from the Unqork module perspective, what happens is, whenever we call this module, our data gets passed to a particular server. Okay, and then that data is something passed here, right, as a underscore request. So if you see here, whatever the response that we are getting in this way, right? So our data, whatever we had passed, got transformed into this way, right? So if I just copy paste this, if I just copy object, and if I just paste here, okay, yeah, so if you have paste here this thing, so what you can say is, we just pass this data, right? We just pass data and sample data, but whenever this data is something passed to the proxy, it is passed from some other server where it has created this kind of a request payload, right? So now what we need to do is, in this proxy module, we need to take data as this entire data and work around with that. So we know, like, this is our request body, right? So this is our request body that is coming to this proxy. So now from the request body, we can take the body. So here I can write the logic to grab the body of this request, which is, yeah, so in the input I can write underscore request, and here I can use this get operator, and here I can grab this body, and inside the body we have data. So I can write body dot data, right? So I can store it into the hidden variable. Let me take output, and here I can use one more hidden variable which I can write it as data. So in this output I can map it to the data. Let's create a init operator, so that would trigger this data workflow as soon as we call this proxy. So here I can write the name as init on load, that is fine. And here I can give it as new submission. So here what I will do is I will trigger that DWF trigger go. So one important thing about this, again, if you see, so this is the underscore request object, right? That is like directly passed to the proxy module. So whatever data we pass, so we just passed this data, right? But we got this. So if you see here headers, we can see other details as well, right? From which user this is getting passed. I mean, this data is passed. What is the IP address and all those stuff, right? What is the access of that, whether it is administrator or not. So with this parameters also, we can decide what particular server to be called, right? So this execute via proxy feature will give us this liberty as well, where we have a good hold of a user, right, from where the data is coming and what to do with that. And now here in this proxy I can use this plugin, and in this plugin here I can put execute module, and here I can execute that store data module, right? So now here in this module I have mentioned this RD, and here we can pass that data. So basically this plugin, right, this endpoint, which is this, right, where the actual store data operation would be happening, so that we are not exposing on the front end. So in the front end, if you see, we are exposing this proxy endpoint only, but not the actual endpoint. But still we would be able to store the data by doing this operation, right? So instead of going directly this, we have done this way. So yeah, that's it from the proxy module, or like execute via proxy concept. If you are having any queries, just put comments on the video, I will answer those. And yeah, if you have liked this video, please like and also subscribe to the channel. Thank you.